Hello and welcome to the ServiceNow webinar, Automate Your Legal Contract Workflows with ServiceNow Legal Service Delivery. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to join us for this webinar. My name is Shafath Syed and I work in product management at ServiceNow. And I'm joined by my colleague Gaurav Diwanji from our product success team. We've organized this webinar into three primary topics. The first will be a business section, the second, technical on configuring contract workflows, and then we'll end with a Q&A. In the business section, we'll cover topics such as challenges with manual contract processes, the benefits of automation, the ServiceNow Legal Service Delivery product, and then a product demonstration that Gaurav will provide. The safe harbor statement basically says that anything you see or hear may change, so we ask you to please bear that in mind. We encourage you to attend future webinars and meetups with ServiceNow. You can click the link in the chat or scan this QR code with your smartphone. A few housekeeping tasks before we begin. Firstly, we've saved time at the end of this webinar for live Q&A, so we ask you to hold your live questions until then. However, we do encourage you to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask questions, and we have a great team of product experts who will answer your questions. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on the ServiceNow community. And after the event, you'll receive a survey, and we ask you to please take a few minutes to fill out that survey because it really helps us improve these webinars in the future. Throughout this webinar, we'll ask a series of poll questions just to learn more about your perspective. And so we're going to start off with the very first poll question, which is, before you heard about this webinar, were you aware that ServiceNow Legal Service Delivery has contract management capabilities? You can just indicate yes or no whether you're aware that this product has the capabilities. Okay, great. It looks like responses are coming in. And yeah, it looks like most of you are actually aware. That's really, that's great to hear. And hopefully you'll learn something new in this webinar. Okay, moving on. So we'll first cover the business topic. And in this topic, when we look at the market landscape around legal departments throughout the world, there's a few things that we've learned. First is that legal work is increasing and headcount resources are just not keeping up with the demand. And in fact, 80% just can't manage their current workloads. Secondly, is that productivity is being lost on a lot of manual tasks. In fact, 75% are just spending time on mundane manual tasks and not on the valuable work. And third is that many organizations just are not able to leverage technology effectively. In fact, 70% are not able to leverage that technology because a lot of the legal technology was designed they were designed for law firms or their point products. And that's why many organizations just don't think that legal tech addresses their needs. When we drill down on some challenges with manual contract processes, we learned a number of things. Now, your organization may have other challenges, but these are some of the challenges that we saw coming up. Firstly, is that the business really struggles to understand the process of getting contracts done. How do you get a contract done? What's the process? How long should it take? Secondly, is that a lot of times legal teams lose time and money and don't meet the demands of the business. There's a lot of back and forth. They don't have the information, or perhaps the request went to the wrong team. A lot of times it's unclear where a contract is in the process. Has legal started working on the contract? Is it being blocked? Is it waiting approvals? How do I know where it is in the process? After the contracts are executed, sometimes they just can't be found because these contracts are in emails or individual computers. We've actually heard of some cases where a legal staff member left an organization and the organization could not find the contract because it was on that person's email system or local computer. And finally, it's difficult to track obligations of contracts, or the contract expiration date comes up and the organization just wasn't prepared. The impact of all of this is that business is unable to transact fast enough and the organization is at increased risk. This leads to our second poll question, which is, how are you primarily managing your contracts today? And this is multiple selection, so please pick all of these that apply to your organization. If you don't see something on the list, please do type it into the chat so that we can get that feedback. Are you doing managing contracts through email? Do you have some self-service or automation? Perhaps you're using several tools, or maybe you're even using a CLM. And again, if you are using other systems or processes, please go ahead and type that into the chat. Okay, answers are coming in. Looks like we have some messaging in the chat. Catalog items, okay. Great, okay, and let's go ahead and end that poll and share the results. So it looks like most of you, about 59%, are doing it manually through email. And then some of you, okay, a pretty big percentage are actually using a CLM system. So it looks like we have a couple of extremes with some other methods as well, some basic intake and several tools. Okay, great, thank you. That really helps us understand how you're doing things right now. Now, when we look at the benefits of automating legal contracts, they really address a number of those challenges. So ideally, through automation, the business would know how to get contracts done on time. Legal teams would be able to operate efficiently and meet business needs. Everyone involved would have visibility onto the contract status at any time. Contracts would be easily found, and obligations would be tracked, and the business would be prepared for those contract expirations. At ServiceNow, internally within our legal team, we've heavily automated to the point where 97% of NDAs at ServiceNow are automatically processed without a lawyer being involved in the process. Another example of automation is that at ServiceNow, our legal team began a process where they've standardized deals for contracts below a certain revenue threshold. And what that did is eliminated the process of negotiation, it freed up attorney time, and made renewals much easier. So at the click of a button, a sales team can basically send out a renewal agreement without a lawyer being involved. And that, again, helps business transact faster. So how is this all possible? How do we address some of those challenges and gain those benefits? Well, and that's where the ServiceNow product, Legal Service Delivery, fits. Legal Service Delivery can help organizations streamline their contract workflows by quickly automating those contract workflows for things like NDAs, sales contract reviews, third-party contracts. It leverages our standard Employee Center portal to make it easy for employees to find the process for doing contracts, and legal organizations, legal teams to provide that customized intake so they can act on those contracts very quickly. And it provides visibility into contract status with insights for ongoing demand. And in a few moments, you'll actually get a demonstration of this product. When we at ServiceNow look at the contract workflow process, we've divided it into these key stages: the request process that the employee does, the creation of the contract, execution or e-signature, storage of that contract, and then managing those obligations. And we have a set of capabilities for each of these. So for the contract request, we have the self-service portal with configurable intake. We also allow for submitting third-party contracts. On the creation side, contracts such as NDAs and others can be dynamically generated based on templates, using the standard ServiceNow approval process for approvals, as well as versioning. We integrate with market-leading e-signature tools, including Adobe Sign and DocuSign. We also support wet signatures for specific use cases like NDAs. Once those contracts are executed and need to be found, you can search using metadata, and those contracts can be stored either in ServiceNow or in third-party cloud storage systems such as OneDrive and Google Drive. When those contracts are coming up for expiration, teams can be notified ahead of time so that they're prepared, and other obligations could be also set up for reminders. So these are the key capabilities that the ServiceNow Legal Service Delivery product provides for contract management. At the core of all of this is analytics that give you insights into what's happening with the contract workflows. So you can see the volume of contracts, how is the work distributed across different stages in the contract workflow, and how long is it taking to complete those contracts. This leads to our third and final poll question, which is, what motivated you to attend today's webinar? Again, this is multiple selection, so please select all of the options here. Are you curious and just wanted to learn what ServiceNow has to offer? Perhaps you're making a purchase decision, or maybe you're a partner that is implementing ServiceNow Legal Service Delivery. Again, if there's something else, another reason why you're attending this webinar, please go ahead and type it into the chat so that we can get that response as well. Okay, wow. Let's see, the responses are just coming in. We'll leave it open just a little bit longer. Okay, and we have a chat response. Okay, expanding knowledge to be able to support clients, understanding the capabilities, great. And let's go ahead and end that poll since it's slowed down. And it looks like the majority of you, in fact, 80% wanted to learn about the contract capabilities that we have in legal service delivery. And then some are evaluating contract tools, great. Thank you for your responses. So enough about, enough with the PowerPoint slides, let's move on to a demo. So in a moment, my colleague Gaurav is going to provide a demonstration of the contract management capabilities, and he'll showcase two use cases. The first is a template-driven NDA contract workflow, and the second is third-party contracts, or you've received a contract on a third party's paper. So with that, please take it away, Gaurav.
Perfect. And if we could go over to the next slide. So the way we'll structure this demo is 3 parts. We'll first cover the contract generation. So we'll see how a contract is generated based on the parameters that are entered in by the user or the requester. The next part is contract execution or e-signature. So we'll demo a DocuSign integration where once the contracts are okayed by legal and by the requester, how the execution part of it can be automated. And lastly, we'll see how we can store those contracts in an external storage to allow for better management of those contracts down the line and better visibility for those contracts. So jumping into the demo, I'll start sharing my ServiceNow screen. And a quick disclaimer here that you might see the instance being a little slower than what you're used to at your organization. And this is mostly because, given the fact that this is a demo environment just meant for one or two people to use, so there might be some slowness over there. So to start off with the demo, we'll start off with an employee persona. In this case, Jane. So Jane is an employee and she wants to work with a vendor. And before she can start working with a vendor, she wants them to sign to an NDA before she can share the details of the RFI and other details, before she can start having those conversations. So in this case, Jane can come to the employee center directly, and she has access to the legal service delivery non-disclosure agreement request item. So she'll decide to submit a request over here. She'll enter in the detail for this form, for this intake form. And in this case, the fields and the forms that Jane is seeing over here is what is delivered out of the box. You obviously can go ahead and change the fields and make it your own based on what your business needs. But this is typically what we've seen most customers need for NDA requests such as these. So we'll just use this for the sake of this demo. Purpose of this contract, Jane can type in additional details, RFI, let's say NDA needed for RFI. Company legal name, let's say she wants to work with Acme America, and just enter in an address for the vendor. We'll enter in the contract start date. Let's say it's tomorrow. So over here, you have a choice to, whether you want to automate the process or whether you want to do a wet signature. So in this case, we'll go with the e-signature, and this is the external signer details. So in this case, I'll just put myself as the external signer who will be representing the vendor. Just for the sake of simplicity, I'll just type my title as external signer. And I have this dummy email address to demonstrate the Adobe Sign DocuSign capabilities. So I'll just use this email address over here, placeholder email address. I'll click on add, and now Jane will once again review this information. If it seems right, she will hit submit. So now this is where the document creation part takes place. Based on how you've configured your contract templates, the right template is picked and information is populated in this contract based off of the intake form parameters that Jane entered previously. So in this case, now Jane has an option to review this contract. Now Jane can go in, and this is the activity stream. Jane can go in and look at who the signers are for these contracts. So in this case, she sees that Eileen is the first signer, Gaurav is the second signer. If she feels that the contract looks good, she can click on the send for signature, which will send the contract to Eileen to be signed. If she feels that, hey, I accidentally entered in the wrong effective date, I needed to start in October, then she can go in and she can click edit request and change the date over here. But now let's say that in this particular case, Jane sees that the term period over here is 3 years. She needs it to be 5 years because she expects a longer term engagement with this particular vendor, and she doesn't want to repeat the same process in 3 years' time. So she can request changes to the contract. So in this case, I'll click on request changes, and she'll type in a description of the change that is needed. can you please increase the term to 5 years? And she will hit submit. So over here, as you see, the state changed from document ready to legal review, and Jane no longer has access to the send for signature button. So so now Jane will wait for the next steps to be taken. She can obviously, if she has any questions for the legal team, she can type her message here. The legal team can respond to her questions. But now we'll look at it from a legal team persona. So let's assume the role of a legal fulfiller. So this can be your legal team, your lawyers or paralegals based on how your current processes are. So for the sake of simplicity, let's call them a legal fulfiller. And in this case, the legal fulfiller will, let's say, work off of the legal counsel center. So this is the workspace where the fulfillers can look at all the requests in their plates and look at contracts. So over here, we'll see the one that we just created, 6.5. And as the legal fulfiller, I have access to work on Jane's request. So we'll wait for it to open up. And over here, as the fulfiller, I see the message that Jane just sent me. Can you please increase the term to 5 years? Now I can assign this to myself. And this assignment can be automatic as well. So based on the group and the type of the nature of the work, so you can automate the assignment rules. But in this case, I've assigned it to myself. Over here, what I'll do is, now this is where the Word documents come in. So I see this docx file generated with the Word document that Jane sees. So now as a fulfiller, what I'll do is I'll download this docx file, open it in Word, make the suggested changes, and then I will upload the Word document directly. So if you work with PDF templates or HTML templates, there was an additional step. So this used to be a PDF, and the fulfiller may need to convert it into a Word document and then make those edits and then upload the PDF again. In this case, it's more straightforward. You can make edits directly in the Word document if you choose to go with Word templates. So over here, let's assume that I made changes to that Word template, and now I'll attach a new version of the document. So over here, let me just see. Yes, I will attach a V2. I'll put a note here of the changes I made. And I'll check the mark as ready. So now what it'll do is it'll create a revision for this document. It'll create a version 2. And now as a fulfiller, I don't think there's anything more that I need to do. But in case there was, I still have this comments box where I could send a message to Jane directly. And Jane sees it on her request tab and she gets notified it as well. So in case I needed any additional discussion. So in this case, we are good. I feel good about the contract and the edits that I've made as a legal fulfiller. And I will click send document. So we see a pop-up message that the document is now available for the requester to preview and take the next steps. So let's look at it as Jane once again. So looking at it as Jane once again, making sure we are Jane. Yes, we are Jane. So now over here, this is Jane's employee center portal. So she can get notified that, hey, you have a request ready for you once again. And then she can alternatively come to my request. Now, as you see over here, the send for signature is available. And Jane can go in and preview the document that was updated. And over here, she can verify that the term has been updated to 5 years. So now she feels good about it. If for whatever reason they needed more changes, then they could follow the same process again. And now she feels comfortable sending it for signature. And these are the two people that it will go to sign. So I'll just click send for signature and confirm. So this was the creation part of the workflow. Now we'll look at the next part of the workflow, which is the execution or the e-signature part. So as a part of this workflow, we have configured the DocuSign spoke. So first of all, as a part of this, Eileen will get an email. There's the email that Eileen just received. She can review document, and as Eileen, I'll sign the document. I'll click finish. And as a part of the flow, once Eileen has signed it, it will go to myself. So I review this document. And as you can see over here, one thing that I'd like to point out now that the document is bigger is some of the information is updated as well. So Eileen's name is here in the document. My name is here that I entered in the template. We see Acme here as well. And then I'll click sign. Click on adopt and sign. Finish. So now that we've finished the signing of the document process, now the integration, once again, lets ServiceNow know that, hey, both of the signers have completed signing the document. So let's go to the request and let's click on refresh for the message to come through. Yeah, so the message did come through. Some versioning errors, let's go. So over here, as you can see, it says the contract has been signed. So let's say that, the actual signing error, signing part won't really take as long, it won't be as quick. So Jane, in this case, would have visibility into where the document is in the signing process as well. So in this particular case, let's say only Eileen had signed, then she could nudge me that hey, Eileen has signed it already, but I see that it's pending with you. So can you please sign it so that we can proceed? But over here, she has full visibility into what needs to be done. And here is the executed contract as well that is now available. And as you see, this executed contract opened in OneDrive. So this is that document storage that we talked about. And Eileen can download this contract, and Jane can download this contract and do what's needed with the contract. And as a part of the external storage over here, I'd still like to show this as well. So you can define the folder structure. So as you see over here, this contract created a new folder, and the PDF file, it will be a part of the of that folder as well. So you can specify the folder structure that it will create inside of the external storage system as well. In this case, we are using OneDrive. So this was the NDA flow, and let's quickly look at it as a legal fulfiller once again as well to see how the contracts look like for them. So over here, I'll click on all contracts. So they have access to all the contracts. And as Shafat called out previously, if you had an end date over here, Then you could populate this end date, and based off of that, you could be notified if if a contract is nearing its termination, and then you could enrich the metadata over here. Similarly, you have access the the actual contract URL where it's stored. There is so the external storage is optional. You can choose to store it within ServiceNow as well, but for the purposes of this demo, we decided to store it in ServiceNow. And I see some questions there. So are there any pressing questions, Shafat, that we'd want to pause before we go on to the third-party workflows that we'd want covered? Or
There are a number of questions in the chat. However, we're
okay,
answering them, so please proceed.
perfect. And yes, once again, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we'll address them as a part of the Q&A session as well.
And actually, if you could please post questions using the Q&A button as opposed to the chat. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. And now let's assume that Jane, so in our first example, Jane was a company, and then she wanted a vendor to sign an NDA. So that's why she generated that NDA, and we went through the whole workflow for that NDA. Now let's assume that Jane is working on the other side. So she is working for the vendor, and she receives a contract, an NDA contract for the sake of simplicity, from her customer that she wants her legal team to review before she can sign it. So that is the use case for third-party contracts. So contracts that are essentially not created through ServiceNow Legal Service Delivery contracts, but you receive it from a third party and you want your legal team to review those before you can sign them. So once again, we are Jane. I'll come to my Employee Center portal, and in this case, I'll pick the third-party contract review. So as the description says, request legal team to review the third-party contract. In this case, let's say this is for a customer, purpose of contract, NDA from Acme. Contract type, we can select the contract type over here. And this is where we upload the contract. So let's say we upload the NDA that Jane received. Just put in Acme Africa, some arbitrary information. And once again, the fields and the forms that you see over here, those are configurable. And based on whatever your business requirements are, you can tweak this form to add fewer or more fields. So over here, you can put the other party legal point of contact name as well. So in case there are any negotiation discussions that need to be had, then the legal team can directly reach out to their counterparty if you have the contact and if you can specify them. So in this case, I'll just put in my name as well over here. And I will click submit. So now the third-party contract has been submitted. So now in this case, there are no next steps for Jane right now. The next steps are for the legal team to review and provide feedback on the contract. And as you see over here, it says status is uploading. And that is because we have set up the OneDrive integration in this case to store the revisions and versions of the contract as well. So now let's look at it as a legal fulfiller. So I'll just impersonate a legal fulfiller. Close all of these. Once again, come to all the requests. So they can see a non-disclosure agreement for Acme Africa. I can open this. I will assign it to myself, and I will start work on it. So over here, as you see, I see the current version, the current revision of the document. So I can, if I click over here, it opens the document in OneDrive, since we have set up that OneDrive integration. And it's a Word document. So over here, I can review the contracts, make any notes, carry out the redlining activities over here. And if it looks good, then my next steps would be I can add the signatories for the contract and prepare for signature. But let's say if there are some edits or I need some things to be changed in this particular contract. In that case, I could create a revision and upload the changed version of the contract, or I could request the counterparty to make that change as well. So in this case, let's say I click on, I want the counterparty to make some edits to the language. I don't want to make them myself. In this case, I could use the compose email action. So over here, as you see, the latest version of the working contract is attached over here. The email address that we typed in as the other party's legal contact is populated in the to field. Jane, the requester, is CC'd. So you can directly draft your email off of here and click send. So now let's assume that the counterparty makes those updates and comes back. Then you can once again create a new revision from the inbound email. So the attachment that was attached to the response that they sent, you can directly bring that in as the latest version of the revision. And then the rest of the flows remains the same, where you can add in signatories, you can prepare and send for signature, the executed contracts get stored. So we won't go to that, but this was the third party workflow flow. So this was the demo. We essentially looked at NDAs, which had that contact creation thing as well, and followed by execution and storage, and third-party contracts, where essentially the creation part of it was skipped because the contract came from a third party, but the rest of the flow around negotiations and the things that you could do and the automation remains the same. And given this is ServiceNow, we can, if you have deviations to the process, you can tweak the flow to accommodate for that as well and make edits to the intake form. So Shafat, if we could, go back to the configuration part of it. So this was the demo, and I see a lot of questions as well, so we'll cover them. So now we'll dive a little bit into the configuration part of it. So you saw it worked, and how do we what is needed to configure it and to make it work? So obviously, two of the things that stand out are the e-signature integration and the external storage integration. So we won't go into too much details for that, given the steps needed, and plus it's really well documented on the product documentation website. But at a higher level, if you're configuring the Adobe Sign or DocuSign spoke, you just need to configure the spoke, follow the steps, step-by-step things given on the document. And in fact, that's what we did as a part of this demo as well. I verified the product document steps as well, and they are really well documented and accurate. And the next step is just going into the legal integrations record and setting in the signature provider as the one that you've set the integration for. So there is a legal integrations record where you can set in the e-signature provider. Similarly, for the external storage, you configure the spoke, you configure the legal integrations record, that we'll go into as well as a part of the demo. And then there are options in the intake form. So you can configure whether or not you want to use an external provider at an intake form level. So let's say you want to, you want to store certain type of contract in OneDrive, but you don't want to store the rest of the contract in OneDrive. You are okay with them being in ServiceNow. So we have that flexibility. And then we'll look at contract templates. So we'll cover template types, actual contract template records, and template rules. So if we could go on to the next slide. So in our particular demo, we covered NDA generation using Microsoft Word templates. So if you're using Word templates, then the typical flow is your legal team can generate a Word document, and then they can create placeholders for information to be replaced as a part of those Word documents. So in our particular case, the company field was variable, the date field was variable, the title and the name of the signers were variable, and the signature box might be variable as well. So Microsoft Word has this feature called content control tags. And that's what ServiceNow parses when it's uploaded into ServiceNow. So these are the prefixes for those tags. So if you put a field underscore prefix to a particular placeholder, then that's you indicating to ServiceNow that, hey, this is a field, and then replace it with a field, a value. And similarly, you can have a signature field that it is signature under. So ServiceNow knows that it is a signature field. Sign date. So that's the date associated with the signature. So that is when the e-signature was done. So this is the part that needs to be done in Microsoft Word. You just need to create tags for your legal template. And from there on, you can go into ServiceNow and upload this Word template and parse it. So I'll once again share my screen. And we can look at the configuration a little bit more. So now over here, I'll once again end the impersonation over here to become the admin once again. And before we go into the contracts part, I just wanted to show the legal integrations. So these are the legal integration records. So over here, I've configured DocuSign for contracts. So you can come in here and create a new legal integration records. You can specify the table and conditions where you want to kick the DocuSign integration off. Similarly, we've done a similar thing for external storage. So over here, I've created this path, executed contract slash number. So this is the path that gets created in OneDrive. So we have flexibility there. And you can put in conditions around what contracts get stored and, attachments to what table get transferred over. And in addition, for external storage, you need to go to the intake form options. So I'll just practice areas, contracts. Let's say we have third-party contracts. So you can go to the intake form options and set the options to enable external storage for attachment. So that's what determines the third-party storage. So that was those two integrations. And now let's look at the contract generation part of it. So firstly, we need to define a contract type. The contract type in our case, was a non-disclosure agreement. It's a logical separation for contracts. So, you can have other contract types as well. So as you can see, we have some data created over here for contract types, not a lot of detail to be entered there. The next part is contract templates. So this is where, the Word document comes in. So over here, if I were to start a new contract template, you would be asked to choose the table. So the table could be the table would be usually the legal contracts table, and upload the document. So when you're creating a new template, you get an option whether you want to do upload a PDF template or HTML template or Word template. You could select Word and upload the Word template over here, associate it with a contract type created previously, and there is a UI action over here called parse document. So I won't go through those steps right now, given the, to keep it to the point, but there is that UI action called parse document. What the parse document UI action does is it parses all those content control tags that you had created in the Word document and brings them over here and sets the document type field. And now you could go in and map the table fields or to this particular document. So let's say we map the company name to the company field underscore company name tag that we have created in the Word document. We've mapped signer name, signer first name, signer last name, and the signer title over here as well. Something that you see over here is the signature fields and the signature date field and the participants. So we can create participants. Participants are users of ServiceNow or external people who sign these documents. So if they are an internal signee, then the user field is needed. If they are an external signee, you can skip it, and then it'll just go off of the email address. And P1 and P2 are just two arbitrary names that we did there. And then you associate these two participants that you created to these templates that, hey, internal signatory associated with like P1 and signatory date associated with P1 as well. So that's how you're telling ServiceNow that this person's sign and the sign date goes here in the document. Similarly, we can do it for P2. So P2, as we saw, is an external signee, and it will feed in from the input information that the user will enter. And as you see over here, this is where it comes from: signee.name, signer.name, signer.email. So the intake form will push values to the table, and P2 will get those values that the user entered. P1 is an internal signer, once again, a placeholder. So that was contract templates. And once again, once you've done all these configurations, you could preview the template and publish it if it looks good. So right now it is in a state of published. And now we'll go to template rules. And template rules is where it all ties together. So think of it as a routing mechanism. So just click edit here so that you can see. So we are essentially telling ServiceNow what template to use for which record. So over here, I've set the condition that use the NDA template that we have created for request on this particular table that satisfy these conditions. So contract type is NDA and active is true. And as you can see over here, we have filled in that external sign, internal signer in the template rules. And where this becomes useful is, think of it as, let's say, if you had a US contract and a UK contract, and you wanted to use the same intake form for both, but you had different language based off of the region. So over here, you can set rules that you could do company.country is US or the country is UK. And based off of it, you could have pick the US template or pick the UK template. And this is the internal signer for US, or this is the internal signer for UK. And then we can go off of there. So this is where you can set the rules, routing rules or template rules to determine which template gets applied based on the information that is entered. And just a technical note here that if multiple conditions are satisfied, then it just picks the whichever one has the highest priority or whichever one it finds first. So it won't take multiple contracts, multiple templates, it'll just take the first one. So some care needs to be taken to ensure that the rules are mutually exclusive, or if they are not, the ordering is correct. So this was the configuration. And this is pretty much all that is needed to get it to work. If you are going with the out-of-the-box flow, if there are some deviations to the flow, then you can always tweak it as needed. But this is the baseline that we offer for customers to get started as quickly as possible. So that was the configuration part of it. And Shafat, I'll hand it off to you again for the next parts. Thank you, though.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Gaurav. And if we move on, we have some resources for you to consider after you leave this webinar. First, we have the Legal Service Delivery product page on ServiceNow.com. We encourage you to go to that page and learn more about the Legal Service Delivery product, because it does far more than just contracts. Secondly, we have a demo video of the contract capabilities that you saw. It's about a 4-minute video. And third, we have a data sheet that is available. Well, we thank you very, very much for attending this webinar. The recording will be available on the ServiceNow community. We also encourage you to download the data sheet and follow up with your ServiceNow account team if you'd like a demonstration of these capabilities or a discussion. Thank you so much.